Hey guys, I got a haircut and I told the hairdresser, I went in because I liked the drawings on her window and I was like, this is the vibe I want. And I went in and I was like, hey, like you can just do whatever you want, be creative, take your liberties, and this is what I got. And I'm still figuring out how I feel about it, but you guys get to see it. And everyone's gonna get to see it all the time. Wow. Um anyways, um today I want to talk a little bit along those lines of like my relationship to like enjoying some chaos or the unknown, or like stepping into things and seeing what I get from the world. So like something I really enjoy is like, let's say I step out the door, like let's say I am always in my apartment and like that's fine, it's cozy and safe, but if you take a step outside, you might find that there's a live jazz band playing, or you might find that there's a little tabby cat, or you might find that there's a lot of hurried looking people. Maybe you find out that it's really sunny and there's sunset, or I don't know, like you just don't know. And I think I wanted to talk about like this thing that I find really amazing about life that keeps me like leaning into the unknown and like embracing like doing things that I want to do, even if there's like ambiguity and like fear, or yeah, like I didn't know exactly what's gonna happen when I went traveling on this trip, and like here it's unfolding and I'm finding out what's happening. This haircut happened, you know? So yeah. I think like when I think about when I was younger, I was 22, 23, I wanted to go on a big climbing trip. I want to go to South Africa, and I didn't like so I had a job offer, but I had asked to delay it by like 6 months. So I had this like 6 month gap where I could do whatever I wanted. And I was like, what should I craft for myself? And I think this is something also that I like to do, is I like to like, it's sort of like having, like I take joy in having these like almost like blank, like here is a container that I can even set for myself and be like, it's almost like here's a blank thesis or something, and like you can do whatever you want with it, and what do you want to do? And so I had created for myself this like 7 month gap, and I wanted to go rock climbing because I was obsessed with rock climbing, and I wanted to go to Rocklands, which is a place in South Africa, but I didn't know anyone, I didn't know how to do it, and it just seemed daunting. So like I think there's something to be said about like having something that is compelling. Like I don't think I would just choose anywhere to go. Same for like this trip, like I think I had like a thing in mind, but like I wouldn't just go just anywhere. For me it's like finding something compelling that I want to do, that I then am like, okay, I want to set out and do this. And like sometimes it's just like a little curiosity. Like the whole process of finding something compelling is also like this full process of like shopping around and exploring and figuring out like yeah, like is this compelling? And then like sometimes it's not like something is like a passion right away. It's more like, oh, I'm curious enough about this, you know, like I'm curious enough to try it. And then like if you're curious enough and you continue trying it, like, is there curiosity at every step, at least enough curiosity in each step to keep trying the next step? And like, if there is, then sometimes that builds into like a big passion, which is what climbing was for me. I originally wasn't like struck by it, and then I just kept doing it, and over time it became like a huge passion for me. And so fast forward, I wanted to go to Rocklands, but it was like this big daunting thing, and I was really scared, and it was ambiguous, and I like had never really done such a extensive solo travel before. And I think like what I like how I do this is like, I think some people will like find something daunting and like there's so much fog and ambiguity that you like give up or you don't even try. But what I find is like you're just like in this fog and you're like, okay, like just like feeling around, and you have to be okay with like the not like, at no point was I committing to doing a trip, right? I was just like sending out my feelers in the fog and being like, I sort of am feeling around in this direction. And that feeling around involved like, I'm going to research like how might one broke college, recently graduated college student do this kind of thing? Are there any articles? What do other people do? There's like blogs of other climbers who have done this. And I was like, okay, they mostly like went with their friends. And I was like, gosh, like, how do I felt really intimidated because Rocklands is like world-class climbing. And I was like, am I good enough of a climber? Like, I'm not strong enough. But then I was like, just talking to my friends about it. And then I reached out to my one friend who I had met in study abroad in Shanghai, and she was in South Africa. And I was like, hey, like I am considering going to Rocklands. Do you have any tips for me? And like, and this reminds me a lot of stuff that Visa and Tiago for other people talk about around like increasing your luck surface area. But I was just like researching and like feeling around and getting a sense, and I reached out to this girl, and it turned out she was like extremely hospitable and welcoming and was like, oh my gosh, you should come stay with me, and my friends and I always go to Rocklands every like winter, and we would like totally love to have you join us. And so in that moment, my like plan went from like how like I was feeling around in the fog, and then I found this like step, or like, you know, I found this like rope, and I was like, oh wow, like I can maybe I don't need these things, maybe sorry, got distracted. I found this like rope that I could grab onto, and I was like, wow, I was just feeling around in the fog and I felt some kind of rope, and now I can use this rope to go further in the fog. And like suddenly I had an in, and my like a lot cleared up, where it was like, oh, I can join this girl and she'll like get me from the airport and take me to this place with her friends. And so like I have this thread I wrote about like minimum structure necessary to do something risky. And for me, that was enough structure for me to commit to buying a flight ticket and going to South Africa. I went to South Africa, and on day 2, she got sick and bailed. So like it was like the minimum structure necessary for me to like do this thing, and then it like fell apart. But I was already in South Africa, and by then I was already like set up. Like I met some of her friends, and like it just really carried me through the whole trip of like 2 months camping in South Africa, climbing, meeting people, and it was like one of the peak experiences of my life. But like yeah, just like this process of navigating the fog and understanding like, oh, if you feel around, like sometimes you don't even know what you're gonna find. You're just feeling around. And if you can just feel around, then like um you just don't even know. Like you end up finding things. You find out like, oh, there are people who can help, or like, oh, here's like extra information, or like here's um something that you didn't know about. And like there's all kinds of like positive and negative things, right? And so like you want to feel around carefully, but like yeah, like I again, like I didn't, my feeling around this fog was not me booking a flight right away. It was like that was too big of a step, but it was more like researching and reaching out and getting a sense. And like I think by getting these little hints and senses, you can pull back from a certain direction, or you can lean in a different direction, and then you finally find like, wow, like I have come a mile along this fog, and now I am doing this thing that I was kind of reaching out for. And that's how I like have found myself on some really awesome adventures in my life. So I think that's all I want to talk about for today. Kind of showing my Parisian haircut and talking about ambiguity and adventuring and navigating things. So cool. See you guys.